Hi everyone, this is Stacia. Welcome back to the academics presentation. Here we have part 2, where we'll get more into academic requirements, academic resources, stuff of that nature. So let us jump right in. First, academic requirements. As you guys probably know, you will have a major, which will be your main area of study. This subject will tend to line up with your career of interest. For example, I'm a public policy major because I want to work in politics in kind of the policy sphere. And to get this major, there will be a set amount as well as specific classes that you need to take in order to earn your degree. Um, and usually you declare this major by your second year of university. I think it's important to note too that before declaring your major in your second year, usually, you might need to have some prerequisite classes, meaning classes that you take in advance in order to be able to declare the major. So when you're looking into your areas of interest, definitely take into account what those prereq classes are and make sure you're getting them done so you can declare your major on time. Some students might choose to have a double major. For example, I have a double major in public policy and Spanish, and this will mean that you have to have extra classes. Basically, it's two majors on top of each other, as double major implies. And then you could also excuse me. You could also opt to have a minor, which will be another kind of secondary focus of study. And this doesn't have to be related to your major at all. People might declare minors in subjects they're interested in that completely do not relate to their second major or their first major for that matter. And even though it might be a completely unrelated area of study, they can be a great, very useful supplement. For example, I have friends who are politics majors who maybe have a minor in data science because they're interested in politics, policy analytics. And so, in order to get a career or have the desired skills in that area, it's good to balance policy with data science. So, that's always something good to consider. And there'll just be a lot fewer courses when it comes to getting a minor as opposed to a major or a double major. Um, Class registration. I remember this being one of the most daunting things going into college because at least at my university, the advising in the summer before I started college was basically none. So you kind of are on your own. And so I think step one, don't panic. It will all work out. Don't put too much pressure on yourself or on this first class registration because you'll have 8 semesters. And anyways, let me get into it. Every university will have a specific registration system for you to enroll using. Most universities, like my own, for example, have a portal where you'll go and see the available class options in the areas of study. These registration dates and times will be assigned based on your class rank, as in if you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. And so seniors get the earliest times while freshmen get the latest. And this just usually means that if you're a freshman, you might have fewer options in the classes to take because they might be full by the time you get to register. For this reason, it's good that you plan your future courses ahead. Over here on the right side of the page, I have my sample semester, 3 semester long plan. This was right after I declared my 2 majors. So I have my public policy major in blue and my Spanish major in red. And so I'm kind of loosely mapping out what classes I need to take each semester in order to graduate. And let's just focus on this green rectangle here. I need a 4,000 level Spanish elective, but there are a lot of class options I can use to fulfill that requirement. So down here, I have a list of the potential classes I could take. I could take Spanish 4200, Latin American Revolutions. I could take 4300, Don Quixote. If that's full, I could take Spanish 4400, all about Almodovar. And that is important to, especially like I said, when you're earlier in your college career, make sure you know your kind of broad requirements, whether it's your major or your just kind of general education requirements. But then don't get too set on specific classes. Make sure you have a lot of options because the classes will get filled up and sometimes you'll be like scrambling to try to enroll and you're like, shoot, I don't have a class for that. So be flexible, don't be too stressed, have a lot of options. But if you want to get into a class and it's full, there are still options. You can usually enroll in a waitlist option in case a spot opens up and then you'll actually get to be in the course. And if you're in a waitlist class, like at the beginning of the semester, what I have done in the past is I also like attend those waitlist classes, even though I'm not in them yet, because in case I get enrolled in them, it's good to know one, whether I like the class, and two, I'll be like caught up on the material. So if I join like a week and a half into the semester, I'm not like completely behind and having to like do everything again. So that's just something I do, but I think a lot of other students do that as well. And it's a good kind of practice, I'd say. And then also, yeah, I guess the reason why there's waitlist movement is because there's a period, usually a 2-week period at the beginning of the semester called the add drop period, where you still have the opportunity to drop a class without any sort of repercussions. And so you can go and assess a class, and if it's really not looking good, you can drop it and swap it out for another class. You can add another class. And I'd say my recommendation is to take advantage of this more than you would initially expect yourself to. I remember at the beginning of college, I was like very stubborn and I was like, oh, like I could drop this class and like swap it out for something else because it isn't really very interesting to me, but I don't want to do that. I just want to like finish it out. But then you have to do that class the entire semester. So don't get too stuck in your ways in those initial 2 weeks. Everything's very flexible, very fluid, and take advantage of that fluidity and try to line yourself up in the classes that are going to be most interesting to you because you spend a lot of time working on them and attending them and you want them to be interesting. So all right, let me talk about credits and making sure you know how to graduate. Obviously, you guys are at the very beginning of your college career, so I don't want you to be too stressed about this. I know I was going into college, like, I need to make sure I maximize every single credit, every single class. I want to graduate as quickly as possible, et cetera, et cetera. But don't worry too much about this. Just like I said, know what you need to take and take those classes, take what you're interested in, try out new things. If you're a bio major, maybe you want to take a class on English literature. That's great because a lot of times that might count towards your like English class core requirement that your college might have. So, anyways, in order to get your degree, you'll need to take a certain number of credits. And this credit is a unit that measures learning, usually based on how much time you spend in the class or spend outside of the class. Usually the classes will be between 1 and 5 credits. Well, they will be between 1 and 5 credits. And usually they'll be worth 3 or 4 credits. I know I have some friends at different schools where it's like different and you might only take like your classes are worth 1 credit. I don't know. At my school, this is how it is, and I think this is the case for most universities, but obviously if yours is different, then you'll be aware of that and don't stress. Colleges will have a limit on the number of credits you can take in a term. My college is like 17 credits, so that's like usually 5 classes max. And there's also a minimum. So definitely consult with your academic advisor to make sure you're getting the right amount of credits, that you're at the threshold where you can be working towards graduation, but also aren't overburdening yourself. And yeah, now let's get into academic resources. First, kind of the practical things. Your required textbooks will be listed in your syllabus, and you can find these at your school's bookstore, whether it's new, used, or digitally. I think that's a good option. I tend to usually rent my textbooks through online resources like Chegg or Amazon, and then I'm able to send them back, return them at the end of the semester. And I found that this really works for me because it's a lot more affordable and also like I don't need those textbooks usually after the end of the semester. So um, don't feel like you need to go out and buy all your new textbooks. It can be very expensive. And so renting will save you a lot of money, save you some time. that's what I would recommend, but I also have other resources I can pass along to you if you're interested. And so just reach out to me if that is something that you're concerned about. Got plenty of options. Note-taking materials, students will usually use laptops or like iPads in class to take notes, but I've noticed that lately a lot of professors are going tech free and saying you can't use your laptop because it's too distracting in class, and so you need to take notes on pen and paper. So they might say that on the syllabus, and in that case you can go to the bookstore and get a notebook beforehand, but don't stress. Usually those first days of class are kind of like they're pretty lax. Like you can figure it out at the beginning of the semester and it'll be totally fine. I also find that folders will be helpful if you're getting paper handouts in a class. And then you'll have major specific materials, like you might need a calculator if you're in a STEM field, but all these things are pretty intuitive. I'm sure you guys know this. Academic honesty is very important. I don't want to like hammer down the point, but just make sure that you are conducting yourself with honesty, integrity, and these actions I have listed here: cheating, plagiarism, manipulating data, working on collaborating on a project that's supposed to be individual, having someone else do your work, using AI when it's not allowed. These will not be allowed at your college, and so just yeah, follow the rules to ensure you have the best possible learning experience. Um, and yeah, just be cautious with that because some colleges are definitely very serious about these things. And then finally, I wanted to offer some just broader academic assistance resources. These are, you'll have a plethora of resources at your disposal at college. And so it's just about knowing where they're able to be accessed and also going out of your way to access them. I think this is something I always like have to kind of talk myself into, like, oh, I should go do this, I should go do that. And I will emphasize that you should utilize these resources whether you feel like you're struggling in a class or if you feel like you're doing fine, but you know that you might benefit from talking to someone about the class material or getting to know the professor. These are great, great options. So, first, there's tutoring. Students in your class might be doing kind of like informal study sessions or working through homeworks. That's a great option. Or you can look into like actual formal tutoring services through your university. Sometimes this might be free, other times, especially if it's kind of like an outside of university resource, you might have to pay for it, but that's something that is good to look into, especially if you're having challenges in a specific class, which is very normal. College is hard. Office hours are a great opportunity to get to know your professor and your TAs. This will be a set time each week or maybe twice a week where you can drop in to ask questions or get help with work and stuff. And I think whether or not you're having issues in a class, go to office hours because it's a great way to connect with faculty, learn about research opportunities, hear about their careers, get to know them. These kind of connections are one of the reasons why you go to college. And so get to know your professors, get to know your TAs. It will definitely benefit you in the short term, but also potentially down the line. Extensions, a professor might grant a later deadline on an assignment if you have a valid reason. This is another thing that I feel like I always have a hard time like doing, but anytime I've had to do it because I'm overwhelmed by work or if I've gotten sick, it I find that the professors and the TAs are very receptive and very willing to accommodate the fact that life happens and you might just not be able to put your best foot forward if you don't have an extra 48 hours. So request that extension if you feel like you need it. Don't, yeah, there's no shame or no shame about it. And then lastly, the writing center is a great option for people to review your papers, help strengthen your writing assignments. Definitely look into that at your college and try to take advantage of that. And that is what I've got for you all today. Thank you for watching. As always, if you have any follow-up questions, look to the website, but also feel free to reach out to me at my email address. And I hope this was helpful. Thank you guys for tuning in. And yeah, have a great rest of your day.